Good evening and welcome to our tax tips webinar presented by Brooklyn Legal Services Corporation A, sometimes referred to as Brooklyn A. Thank you for being with us tonight. For those of you who are new to Brooklyn A, we were established more than 50 years ago, and we serve clients all throughout the 5 boroughs of New York City, from our home offices in Williamsburg and Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, and throughout the 5 boroughs as well. We provide innovative, collaborative, neighborhood-based representation and advocacy that advances social and economic justice and opportunity. The core theme of our high-quality, low-barrier legal services is to support individuals, families, and small businesses so they can thrive and stay rooted in their communities and neighborhoods despite the pressures of gentrification and displacement. Brooklyn A has 3 main overarching program areas that we provide services in. Our Preserving Affordable Housing program works in eviction prevention, combating tenant harassment, helping tenants make repairs and essential services, and tenant organizing. Our Community and Economic Development program provides commercial lease assistance for small businesses throughout the 5 boroughs in partnership with the New York City Department of Small Business Services. And we also provide support to nonprofits and community-based organizations and other matters related to rent, leases, non-profit incorporation, and more. Our Consumer and Economic Advocacy program hosts our low-income taxpayer clinic, which offers a variety of tax resources. Our foreclosure prevention program, which works to preserve homeownership, particularly of Black and Brown families in the 5 boroughs. And combat predatory lending scams and other threats to homeownership. The Consumer and Economic Advocacy program also houses Brooklyn A's new domestic violence program, which was launched within the past year, which offers services including orders of protection, child custody support, and more. And today we are happy to share this tax tips presentation by 2 members of the Consumer and Economic Advocacy team, George Galan and Anita Jiang. They will begin our presentation now.
Thank you everyone for coming. We can click next. So we'll have an agenda set out for today. So we'll be going over New York's collection options, New York scams, IRS collection options, and IRS scams as well.
And I will help start us off with the New York State collections options. So there are 3 main collection options for New York State. One is to pay in full. Second is an installment payment agreement, also known as an IPA. And third is an offer in compromise, OIC. So one way you can pay in full is to create an online services account, the New York State Tax Department. You can log in or create an account to view your current balance. And after that, you can pay directly from your bank account for free or to pay over debit or credit card for a fee. You can also use Quick Pay. However, to do Quick Pay, you need a case number from your bill or notice, and you must have the following information, such as your social security numbers, filing status, mailing zip code, and your first and last name. Here is a sample on how the Quick Pay would look, which shows that you need your social security and all the other relevant information before you're able to do the Quick Pay. And another option is that you can pay in full through a check or money order, which is payable to the Commissioner of Taxation and Finance, where you also have to write your 10-digit assessment or case number from your notice, and you would mail the payment to the address listed below. Another way to pay is an installment payment agreement, also known as an IPA. So you can schedule for monthly payments if you have a balance of $20,000 or less, and with 36 or fewer scheduled monthly payments. You can request an IPA through your online services account. Or if you have a balance greater than $20,000 or it requires more than 36 scheduled monthly payments, you must make a request by phone at 518-437-5434. If you believe that you can pay your balance in full in 60 days and you don't need monthly payments or in general just an IPA, you can ask for a one-time extension by calling the number 518-457-5434, which is the same number as before. And another you can do is an offer in compromise. So an offer in compromise allows for anyone that's qualifying financially distressed taxpayers the opportunity to put overwhelming tax liabilities behind them by paying a reasonable portion of their tax debt. So to do so, a taxpayer must show that they are going through an undue economic hardship, which in other words is the inability to pay reasonable basic living expenses, for example, for your health, welfare, and production of income for you and your family. To prove undue economic hardship, New York State will consider the following factors to assess your claim, which could be age, employment status, and employment history, inability to earn an income because of long-term illness, medical conditions or disabilities, obligation to dependents, or any other extraordinary circumstances such as special educational expenses, medical catastrophe, or a natural disaster. Also, they will consider the inability to borrow against or liquidate assets due to hardship. So you can apply through your online services account if you are an individual, your debt is for personal income tax only, you do not have an open protest for any of your liabilities, you do not have an open bankruptcy, and the total amount you owe to the department is $15,000 or less. So you have to make sure you have your asset, your liability, monthly income, and monthly expense information available to do so. And you can also mail your offer in compromise to the address listed below. If you're an individual seeking hardship relief, you can include a statement describing the undue economic hardship you're experiencing, along with any supporting documents while you file for your offer in compromise application. So to complete your offer in compromise, you want to complete a form DTF5, which is a statement of your current financial condition, and either DTF 4.1 or DTF4. 4.1 is the most common, which is an offer in compromise for fixed and final liabilities, while DTF4 is for liabilities not fixed and final and subject to administrative review. So you would submit the following, which is federal returns for the preceding 3 years with all schedules and statements attached. You must include an explanation if you're not required to file, and all bank account statements, brokerage account statements, and retirement account statements for the preceding 12 months, and a credit report fewer than 30 days old. You also need to include any supporting documentations that will substantiate a financial disclosure that is made on your form DTF5, which once again is your statement of financial condition. So IRS has the ability for a taxpayer to be placed in a currently not collectible, also known as CNC status. However, there's no equivalent of that with the New York State, and my colleague George later will explain what a CNC is. So moving on to New York State scams. There will be 4 things that I will cover, which will be tax preparer scams, phishing emails, phone calls, and mail letter correspondence, because scammers have a variety of tactics that people may have trouble realizing that it is a scam. So first of all, for tax preparer scams, scammers may make false claims on others' tax returns or even steal their refunds. They will often try to take advantage of those who might not otherwise have to file tax returns, such as the elderly or low-income households. In other words, they target people who normally do not have to file tax returns, but that's not always the case. Also, working with phony or dishonest tax preparers can pose a threat of identity theft and also leak your information, which you do not want to do. If you choose to file your tax return with a tax preparer, you have to make sure and take precautions to protect your refund and prevent identity theft by keeping the following tips in mind. One thing is that you want to work with those whom you have researched thoroughly. You want to avoid taxpayers who claim they can obtain a larger refund than other tax preparers can, as well as those who base their fee on a percentage of your refund. You want to make sure that your tax preparer is willing to sign your return and provide their IRS preparer tax identification number, also known as a PTIN. The preparer must also provide you with a copy of your return. You should look over your return carefully as you're legally responsible for what's on it. Similarly, you should never sign a blank return. So if you ever suspect that a return preparer filed or altered the return without your consent, you should report it to the IRS by downloading the Form 14157 and Form 14157A on the irs.gov website. You can also order them by mail through the phone number listed below. To report any fraudulent activity by a tax preparer with contact the New York State Tax Department's Office of Professional Responsibility at 518-532-HELP, option number 2, or you can file a tax preparer complaint online at the website listed below. Now, moving on to phishing emails, which is quite prevalent nowadays. Phishing is an attempt to trick you into providing personal financial information through an email request or through a link to a fraudulent website. It is a criminal activity using various techniques to manipulate you into performing actions or divulging confidential information that you would normally not provide. These emails or links in the email may appear to be from a trustworthy source, but they're designed to trick you. By clicking on an active link in a phishing email, the recipient may be directed to a fraudulent website that attempts to acquire your personal or private information, or possibly infect your computer with a malicious software. Scammers will usually use scare tactics to get you to share your personal and financial information with them. Scammers may demand immediate payment for a tax step, threaten you over the phone, possibly with police action or deportation, or demand you to pay in a specific way, such as through prepaid debit cards or in person. So signs that an email may be a phishing attempt include obvious spelling errors. Phishers do not do this intentionally in order to avoid spam filters many internet providers use. Links to the website contain all or part of a real entity's name or website address, but the link itself is not identical to the legitimate website. Clicking on these links may take you to a different, possibly malicious website or pop-up windows that ask you to provide, update, or confirm sensitive personal information. Remember to check the true destination of an active link by hovering over your mouse over it and reviewing the address information displayed in the status bar at the bottom of your computer to make sure it matches what you're seeing. The New York State Department of Taxation and Finance uses emails to communicate services and announcements to those who have provided an email address. If you have not provided an email address to them, they will not be sending you an email. Below are a following list of legitimate emails from the tax department that they will send with the addresses. The tax department may use emails to provide information on changes of the tax law, regulations, or department policies, or to announce the publication of new tax guidance to assist you in complying with tax obligations. Emails from the New York Tax Department will be general in nature, and if authorized, the department may use email to alert you to new activity within your online services account. The New York Tax Department will never request that you provide sensitive personal information, such as social security numbers, taxpayer ID numbers, bank account numbers, PINs, users' names, or emails through email. The tax department will send you email consistent with the services that you have requested. Links will only be provided that will bring you directly to the content on their website, located at, for example, .tax.ny.com, .nystax.gov, and etc. To verify the destination of an active link, as I mentioned before, you should hover your mouse over it, and to review the address information displayed in the status bar located at the bottom of your browser page, it will display the web address destination of the link, and you should again make sure that it matches. You should also note that links are provided only for your convenience. So if you receive an email from the New York State Department of Tax, and you're not sure whether it's a scam or not, you do not need to click the link. You can always go to www.tax.ny.gov into your browser and navigate to the services or information you require there. Now, moving on to scam phone calls, the tax department employees will never, one, threaten you for failure to pay a tax debt, request your refund to call us back for a number found on our website, use email, text messages, or social media to request or discuss your personal or tax information, or demand you to pay taxes without the option to question or appeal the amount we say you owe. Now, you can protect yourself from scam phone calls by, one, if you receive a threatening phone call regarding your taxes, hang up immediately because the representatives will not threaten you to pay a debt. Don't agree to make anyone claiming to be a tax representative in person to pay a debt. Do not provide personal information in an email or click on any suspicious links in an email asking for personal information. If you receive a suspicious phone call about your taxes, record the caller's name, phone number, and information displayed on the caller ID, if available. If the caller claims to be a tax department or IRS employee, ask for the employee's ID or badge number to assist the New York Department of Tax in their investigation. You can report possible impersonation scams to the tax department and IRS online or by phone. Suspicious phone calls and voicemails, text messages, and emails requesting personal information or interactions with the tax department or IRS employees who do not seem legitimate are things you can report. This is a screenshot taken from the New York State Department of Tax. So it details that if a caller states from where they're from and what to do if you're concerned. For example, the first part is the IRS. If you get a caller that states they're from the IRS or the US Treasury and you do not believe the caller is a legitimate employee, you can contact them by phone, email, or online based on what is provided. If the caller states that they are from the New York State Tax Department and you do not believe the caller is a legitimate employee, again, you can contact and report by phone or email. And if the caller states that they are from the New York State Treasury, and again, you do not believe that they are a legitimate employee, you can contact them by phone at 1-800-771-775. You should be wary of phone calls requesting for money or personal information. To prevent falling victims to this type of scam, please take note of the following tips. The IRS will typically first initiate contact with a taxpayer concerning a tax issue via mail. The IRS does not request personal or financial information through mail and will not ask for credit cards over the phone. You can call the IRS at 1-800-829-1040 if you think you owe taxes or need help with a payment, and hang up the phone immediately if someone claiming to be from the IRS unexpectedly calls and threatens police arrest, deportation, or license revocation. This is the same for the New York State Department of Tax and Finances, and you can find the same information on the New York State website. Now, there's also mail and letter correspondence that are scams. I will soon talk with you some legitimate letters and what is usually included in these letters, and also sample scam letters and red flags. So I'll first go over a legitimate letter from the New York State Department of Taxation. So if you look at these pictures, official notices from the tax department will always have the logo and address, and they will provide you with the amount that's due. The tax department will always provide options to pay your outstanding debt online, over the phone, or by mail. You can also set up an installment payment agreement if you can't pay your debt in full. The tax department will also explain important terms and how they might impact you. Additionally, they will provide you with information about property that may not be taken by a debt. You also have a right as a taxpayer in New York State. Official notices from the tax department will include those rights and how to access more information. And now I will go over a legitimate letter from debt collectors. Here, legitimate debt collection companies will include their name and address on any notice. Contact information will be provided for the company and the collector as well. Legitimate debt collection will comply with all state and federal laws that are outlined in the note. You will be provided with a way to submit your payment directly to the tax department. And any legitimate notice from a reputable debt collector will include your NYS assessment ID, the tax period for the outstanding amount, and the balance owed. Moreover, private tax collectors are required to notify taxpayers of their rights. So now I will go over some scam letters and red flags. So here is a following picture of a scam letter, and as you can see, there's no address to contact the company sending the letter. Additionally, the tax department will never use the word distraint on its notices, which this one uses. There is also no mention of the tax period the debt is covering, and only says that this person owes a certain amount to be paid in full. There is also no mention of how to make a payment other than to call the number provided. As you saw before, there's usually multiple options that you can utilize to make a payment. However, as seen in the scam letter, they only offer a phone call. A legitimate letter from the tax department or a reputable collection agency will include their contact info so you can respond to phone calls and letters, provide tax department contact information, a complete return mailing address, an option to respond online, by phone, or by mail, a detailed explanation for why it was sent, and an explanation of your rights as a taxpayer. Now I will let my colleague George take over for the IRS.
Yes, thank you, Anita. So beginning, I'll go over the IRS collection options now. So there are 4 main IRS collection options that follow similarly with New York State, with the exception of the currently not collectible status, the CNC. So we'll begin first with the pay in full option. So pay in full is the first option that you have. So you do have 2 options when it comes to paying your balance in full, similarly to New York State. You first can pay directly on the IRS website. If you have the amount due withdrawn from your checking or savings account, there are no fees applied. Whereas if you pay with a debit or credit card, there are fees. With the debit card, it's about $2 to $3 of a fee, and then with a credit card, it's 2%. And then if you want to make a payment, there is a link on the slide. The second is the installment agreement. So the IRS breaks up the installment agreements into 2 options. So the first option being the short-term payment plan. That's for 180 days or less if you believe you can pay off your debt in that time period. That has a $0 setup fee. You can pay directly from your account or by check or with a debit and credit card, with the cards having the fees attached to that as well. The long-term payment plan, that's if you pay monthly until the debt is paid off. For that, you have 2 options. You can do an automatic withdrawal. With that, there's a $31 setup fee, which is waived if you are eligible for low income. And these are automatic payments from your checking account each month. You can also opt in for pay each month on your own. However, that has a higher setup fee, which is lower if you're lower income. Just to keep in mind, with all these payment plan options, payments, penalties, and interest will continue to grow until the balance is paid in full. The third option is the offer in compromise. So this is a large one that really helps allow you to settle your tax debt for less, and is a legitimate option if you can't pay your full tax liability, and doing so creates some financial hardship. So the IRS on the link provided has a great resource guide. So just to keep in mind, this can be an extensive and lengthy process, requiring statements of all financial accounts, assets, liabilities. So it does take process. But one way to find out if you may be eligible is to first go to the IRS pre-qualifier tool, which is linked on the slide. And just keep in mind that you have to be current on all your tax returns. You can't be in an open bankruptcy proceeding. And of course, BKA is here to help you navigate the offer in compromises. The fourth one, the one that New York State does not have, is currently not collectible. So this is temporary status that IRS allows you to have. So generally, they won't try to collect from you in this period. For example, they won't levy your assets or your income, so they won't garnish your wages. However, the IRS will still be collecting or assessing interest and penalties to your debt, and apply them, and may take your refunds from New York State as well and apply them to your debt. Similarly to offer in compromises, currently not collectible status will need to collect information on any assets and your necessary living expenses. Form, if you would like to see an example, Form 33F provides all the different kinds of criteria that the IRS will look at, and there's a link provided there as well. So now I'll be discussing IRS scams, which follow largely with New York State. So the IRS posts an annual summary of tax scams every year called the Dirty Dozen. So imagine it's 30 dozen eggs. So you want to keep current with these. So for phishing and smishing, so these are the most popular ones as well. Phishing is for emails, smishing is for text messages. So the IRS initiates most contacts through regular mail and will never try to initiate contact by email, text, or social media regarding a bill or tax refund. So similarly to, as Anita said, you never want to click on any unsolicited communication claiming to be the IRS, as it can contain malware. So for example, this is an example of a phishing scam. So as you can see here, the IRS doesn't send out emails like this, especially when they're trying to get you to click on a certain part of the page. This was very common during COVID when there's a stimulus payments going out. And so if you clicked on, claim my payment, that might lead to malware or some kind of virus. So you just want to always verify that what the email is coming from is something verifiable. And then similarly to New York State, you could just not click on the email and go directly to the irs.gov website, which is verifiable. And then this is another example. So again, always keep an eye on the domain. So always look at who is sending the email. For example, in this one, the domain is at getrefundnow.com. That is not legitimate. A real IRS email address will have the irs.gov domain. And similarly with the last one, this one as well will try to get you to click somewhere, usually kind of enticing you with a tax refund or some sort of payment. Again, it's not legitimate, and you can always go to the irs.gov website directly. So what should you do if you receive one of these scams? So first of all, do not click or open any of the links. You may report the scam directly to the IRS. You can send an email or a copy of the text, email, and attachment to phishing@irs.gov. So this report can include or should include the caller ID, email or phone, date and time zone, and the number that received the message. So one of the ones that has come up very recently is social media scams, so fraudulent filing and bad advice. So as our said here, social media can circulate inaccurate or misleading tax information that encourage people to submit false, inaccurate information in hopes of getting a refund. So for example, on this image right here, this is something you may commonly see on like Facebook or other social media, where someone may try to entice you with being able to get, receive your taxes. And for example, here, the person said the form you need to file is 8944. If you look up that form and try to apply for it, it is actually totally different, not for taxpayers, it's for tax preparers. So again, always be verifying your information. Social media is easy to just spread misinformation, so just check with irs.gov for the most recent and accurate information. Similar to New York State, IRS wants to issue cautions for shady tax return preparers. So these red flags can include that the tax preparer is unwilling to sign the return or include their IP or their P10 number. If they do not do so and you sign the return, you are on the hook for any mistakes or wrong calculations. So please verify that your preparer is signing the return. Another red flag may include that they ask for cash only payments without providing a receipt. They'll invent false income to get you tax credits, and they may claim or ask you to claim fake deductions to boost the size of your refund. Another scam that the IRS has listed on their Dirty Dozen are these offer and compromise bills. So these are great. Again, offer and compromise is a legitimate and great way to get help from the IRS, but scammers will use it to take advantage of taxpayers. So these OIC mills will usually make outlandish claims in radio or TV ads about how they can settle massive amounts of debt for cheap, but then they'll actually charge excessive fees. Then they'll knowingly advise taxpayers to file an application even though they know that the person will not qualify, costing taxpayers money and time. Again, BTA, we are here to help you and assist you in finding out if you do qualify for offer and compromise. So please always reach out and contact us for this. Again, for reporting fraud and scams, so the IRS encourages you to report any of these kinds of scams. So by completing form 142 to 42 and any supporting material to the address on the screen. And then also the IRS does an IRS whistleblower office, which offers possible monetary reward. So for more information on that, you can click on that link. And again, the IRS posts these annual lists each year. So that's a great way to just stay in touch with ongoing scams and stay safe. Great.
Thank you so much, George and Anita, for all that really valuable and rich information. Viewers, if you have a question about any of these specific topics discussed or something related to your tax situation, your questions, please feel free to enter the question in the Q&A box that's on the bottom of your Zoom window. In the meantime, we had a couple questions received beforehand, which I'll share, give everybody a moment to get a question if they have any. George, these are IRS related questions. If an offer in compromise is submitted, do people need to keep paying installment agreements for tax debt?
So thank you. So no, so if you are paying for an installment agreement and have one in place, the moment that your offer is entered and is being processed, you do not have to make any payments. And so if your offer is not accepted, there's no additional tax assessed at that point. So yeah, so you do not have to keep making payments while they're processing your offer in compromise.
Great. Another question, how long does the IRS have to collect on a tax debt?
Yes, so generally the IRS has about 10 years to collect from the day of assessment of the debt.
Great. And then a question about the federal and state together. Is it possible for a taxpayer to make an offer to both the IRS and to New York State?
Yes, so with New York State's program, it operates independently from similar programs offered by the IRS, and the guidelines for accepting offers may differ between the New York State and the IRS. However, when you're applying for the state program, as part of the application, a taxpayer can include a copy of the collection information statement given to the IRS. So in other words, yes, you can make an offer to both the IRS and the New York State.
And how long does New York have to collect on tax debts?
It is generally 20 years from the date of the assessment.
So 10 for the IRS and 28 for New York State. Got it. I don't see any questions from our participants yet. I'm going to share this final slide with Brooklyn A's contact information, including our telephone, our website, our email address, and our 2 physical locations. Telephone and email are the fastest way to connect to us and connect to a person who might be able to give you customized advice based on your situation. And if we can't help you directly, we can often connect you to another agency or resource that is an expert in your specific situation. So thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you to our presenters for all this excellent information. And thank you for joining Brooklyn A, and please reach out and connect to us if we can provide assistance on this or any other challenges that you may be facing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
everyone.